they are not sensitive to it.
True.
They also redirect them. Maybe you go to town or something or something. These are victims who have, suffered trauma and pain, and maybe there's some injuries. They have to travel a long way. Maybe they're going from Baya to Hagen. It's a risk for them too, to travel from Baya to Hagen to get justice. All right.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll just give the opportunity to Deputy Secretary Pitmore to give us the data.
Chairman, so with regards to that question, after the 2023 inquiry, our team went back and with the support of the Australian government, we actually printed all the forms, IPO forms and PO forms and the referral forms, and we distributed throughout the 22 provinces of the country. We even conducted training for all our provincial liaison officers. So these are officers in 22 provinces, just 22 of them, who are under the Department of Justice structure. So they provide a supervisory liaison role for the Department of Justice, between the Department of Justice and provincial administration. So we've trained them. The idea was that the training was for them to go back into their respective provinces and work with the provincial administration, utilizing the functional grants given for village courts to run specific trainings for village courts on the IPO and the protective mechanism under the FPA. Not only that, at the national level, we've conducted a number of trainings since 2023 to 2024 in Morobe, specifically on the Family Protection Act, enlightening them on the different forms that are needed and their powers, apart from the powers they're given under the Village Court Act to issue preventative orders. They now have additional powers to issue IPOs. And in the event of breaches, the referral mechanism that has to happen, because we found out from our conversations with them that they're still, in terms of their understanding of referral, they're still referring cases only to church pastors, the church network, and also family members, but there are also other stakeholders like police, the GBV mechanism, FSVAC that are established in the provinces that they can utilize to do referrals. And the training have been in 2023, we've conducted in Morobe, in Arob, in Bougainville. That's the only autonomous region that we've conducted training to all the 42 village court areas. Also in Hela, because we have a dedicated liaison officer in Hela, and we've managed to conduct the training for almost half of Hela. And in 2024, we've done training in Central Province, and we are piloting the training for the grade 12s that we've recruited with CILAG this year for Central Province. Also in East New Britain and NCD. And this year, we also thank you to the government for the funding given, and also Australian government has invested heavily, including European Union in capacity building, and we'll continue to roll out these trainings specifically on FPA, because there's a specific training in that space, and also in SAV, social reaccusation related violence. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, Chairman, if you might, I could just get our deputy to also read the third question, the answer to that, so that you can ask some more questions.
Thank you, Chairman. In relation to the design of the witness protection system, through the village courts policy that we have in place, the village court houses, the consideration is for the village court houses to act as sanctuary or safe houses for the survivors of GBV. So that comes to looking at how the design of the buildings as well, but also acting as a main point of contact in terms of coordination with the other sector agencies. Probably just a bit on the data as well that have collected in relation to the GBV cases over 2023 and 2024. That has come in from the reports that have provided by some of the village courts in the provinces. So looking at the types of cases, assault for the male perpetrator between 2023 and 2024, we have 158 assault cases. For female perpetrators, 157. For male victims for assault, 107. In terms of female, 1, but that might not be accurate. We need to confirm given our new rollout of the case management system. Also, insult, threatening words, or offensive behavior, male perpetrator, 107, female perpetrator, 1, male victim, 118, female victim, 126. Looking at marriage problems, 209 male perpetrators, female perpetrators 290, male victims 366, and female victim 210. So those are some of the examples of the data system that we currently have, but we hope that with a new case management system, we are able to have a comprehensive data that comes in from the provinces. I think right now there are 7 village court areas that are trialing the case management system, which we are looking at.
All right. Deputy Secretary, you have this data, it will be submitted to us, huh?
Yes, it will be submitted with all the responses to the questions that are posed.
All right, and in terms of developing a witness protection, you're saying that at this time you are all using a safe house. Is this the safe house similar to all our frontline providing protection to the victims and survivors, or separate safe house? And how does this operate? It's in away from a tribal area or local area, or within, or you are all not going to reveal this? Maybe it's for protection, you cannot give too much details, right? But there is a mechanism to really give protection to witnesses.
Yeah, Chairman, so with regards to specific witness protection and safe houses, so there's a demarcation there for safe houses. Department assists community development with that, because community development has that mandate of providing the standards, developing guidelines, registering of safe houses. That's why in the presentation before they did give some statistics on the number of safe houses in the country. Our role, our view is that for a comprehensive witness protection similar to other well-resourced jurisdictions, I think for us would be difficult. It's our view that it would be difficult at this stage to realistically implement that. So our view is to only strengthen current protection mechanisms that are provided. Examples include the police conditions that are imposed, or bail refusal, district court bail conditions, or bail refusal, national court bail conditions, the remand mechanism, domestic violence protection order, the IPOs, interim protection orders imposed by both village courts and district courts, and punishment through imprisonment. So these are mechanisms that we think at this stage we can just strengthen rather than adopting a comprehensive witness protection mechanism. The thinking is that in the future we might opt, when population increases, we might do that, because to take someone out, say, from the highlands and place it in the coastal, or someone from coastal and move them in the highlands, it's very easy to just identify the person. So identity will still be an issue, and that's why we are advocating for strengthening the current systems, protection systems that we have, until such time we can do that in the future.
All right, Deputy Secretary and Secretary, I think the reality is this, the reality. In a SARB situation, the perpetration is being carried out by the community, young men especially, some adult men, and children are listening in, watching in. So the chances of that community turning around to be witness against their own relatives or tribesmen or clansmen is almost zero. Okay, you come to and I put this to you already, Secretary. You come to a GBV situation, 80% is within a close relationship. What are the chances of, the relatives or children or turning up to be witness? So this begs the question that I raised earlier. Are we going to do amendments to the Evidence Act so that conviction is based on the credibility of the victims or the survivor? And I think we are getting this type of cases now. The victim and the survivor only strong law come law court. Trying to get the relatives and witness to come, almost impossible. So it's good that we are trying to find ways to provide protection, but I would suggest that the other way is that we change the Evidence Act so that the judge or magistrate can test, and even the Supreme Court too must be synthesized so they understand that we test the conviction based on the credibility of one witness only. So, because the victims and survivors, they come and they go and report, and they're not going to go and get their witness against to come, and they don't have the money, and it's stressful for them. So they, face stress and trauma. They are subject to another stress and trauma. To get justice is almost impossible. So this is why me posing this question, earlier on to you, Secretary. Are we finding an alternative way to ensure conviction? Because the statistics we have given here, from 30,000, we only convict 150. We arrested only 1,000 from 30,000. That's only reported one. And as far as the committee is concerned, and I think members of Parliament too, our general sort of observation is that things are getting out of hand, both in GVV sector and law and order generally, because we are not arresting and convicting. We are not convicting, so it's not a, perpetrators can see that we are not serious. There is no conviction, so what is going to stop them? All working here. So there must be another way in which we are going to secure conviction. So that's one suggestion. What are your thoughts on that? And if not, if we don't change the Evidence Act, what are the other ways in which we can secure conviction without, maybe playing around with the law, undermining the law? I understand the law of evidence in terms of, making sure that there is no questionable conviction. But as I suggest to you all earlier, Secretary, you're in charge of our justice system. The Constitution and the system is in favor of the accused. All people blame me, the perpetrator. All people blame me, let's finish here. Law is protecting the accused. The state is protecting the accused. The resources are going to the accused.
The victim?
What about the victim? What about the survivors? What is the structural system or whatever system or legal system that is going to give them some hope that this perpetrator, me look at him, me look at him. They did it to me. I've got the scar here. Do I need to go and get a witness somewhere to come and prove it? Yeah. It's in my face. It's in my mental state. The doctor probably give, has given a medical report too that can support it that I have suffered injury. So this injury, is it self-inflicted or samla inflicted on me, or this particular person I'm saying that inflicted on me? So what do I have to do to convince the judge? So is there any way we are thinking of this classic evidence law belong criminal code here, criminal law, the there must be collaborative evidence or supporting evidence. Let's try to change the law so that we test it on the credibility. This the victim may become the posture and the evidence is solid. Convict him. Let that person go and appeal to court and, come up with the reason why we shift the onus to him. Or why don't we, in some cases, we shift the onus of proof. It's being done in the European system. The onus of proof, I made the allegation, the onus of proof is on you, I'm accusing you. You come and disprove that you didn't do it. Otherwise, you go kalabus now. Any thoughts around that? Or?
Thank you, Chairman and committee. So what we've done firstly is to try to do the prevention part of it. That's why we came up with the IPOs can be issued by another person. We also went ahead to, when you amended the Family Protection Act, you also protected the safe house. So we had an incident where people were going to the safe house and interfering with the victims. And so that law you have already changed. So with the amendment to the Family Protection Act in 2022, you have now given us that coverage. So thank you. Now we're coming back to the law of evidence. The department has been dealing with a piece of law, and I admit that we've been sitting on it for a while, and that's called the Women's Health Protection Bill that we're working on at the moment. It's taken us a while, but in that provision, we're looking at sexual assault. And we're suggesting that in that bill, if a woman has been sexually assaulted, then the evidence from the medical doctor is sufficient. But then in terms of the interview, we're suggesting that that interview must be done in private and must be done maybe by email. Because I'm not come. Or can we find another way of collecting that evidence? Because I'm not come, I'm stop long way of Siasi Island, me not come got a lolly, I'm so hard. So is there another way of collecting the evidence from the victim and possibly a witness? So that's something we're already looking at, and I'm hoping that we can push. I'm just telling our deputy that now that you raised it, whether we can push ahead with those proposals so we protect the victims. I think that's what it is. But in the context of the law of evidence, I think you know very well that in 2010, we did improve the provisions of the criminal code on sexual offenses. So we have done it already. We have increased the penalties up to 14 years and up. But it's just maybe your proposal, Chairman, we can take it on board. We're happy to look at it. Thank you.
Yeah, if I may. See, what worries me is the level of perpetration and the level of conviction. If there's a perpetrator out there or someone who's planning to rape a woman, assault a woman, all these kind of things, they already know that the chances of getting caught are 0.5%. So they have a 99.5% chance of getting away, scot-free. Now that's just based on the registered cases. If we add all of the unregistered ones that are not reported, then the chances of getting away are probably 99.9%. So trouble mania, that the person that's going to cause problems, they already know the weakness in the law. So I put it to you, Secretary, that this is encouraging them. You know the chances of getting caught are almost zero. So by walking it, and you do it with impunity. 20 of you decide to do it to one woman because you know that your chances of getting away is very high. Okay, we need to stop that. We need to figure out a way that sends a message to all these perpetrators. Yes, we understand that heavy come up long way of town. Hard you may prosecute him. There's difficulties there. But at the moment, we are not even prosecuting those that are in town. We are not even dealing with that. You mean no, man am walking wrong here. You mean no catch him. So, in certain cases where we already see we're describing it as a pandemic in society. The UN report says that there's 5 million cases a year. 5 million women are getting assaulted every year in our country. 5 million. And the projections are that it's going to get worse, not better. So armed with that information, then we need to do something. That's essentially why we are having all of these conversations, why we have a permanent committee. We need to deal with it. One suggestion I'm thinking of, and I don't know whether it's possible in law, is that can we change the requirements specifically for gender violence only as a deterrent? So you place if a woman comes and complains, and if you've seen women who've been raped and assaulted, legan blol guriaya, they've just been through a very traumatic experience, and then you have to recount that. She's just been violated, assaulted, and if she's been assaulted by several men stronger than her, that's not something, first of all, that she wants to talk about. And we are from a society where shame and big plus something. So the first thing she has to deal with is her own personal shame and guilt. Because lo country blame me too, all got all black rich Christians also talk same. You yet you make him na heavy come up on top of you. So there's that second stigma that is being placed on this victim. And then if we get a statement from her and then she has to sit in front of a court to recount that experience, then it's almost like we are raping her 4 or 5 times. So we have to see this from the point of view of the victim, not from the point of view of the rest of us who are not victims.
True.
So I put it to you that this is perhaps unique to Papua New Guinea. How many countries in the world can say that more than 80% of their women are going to be sexually assaulted in one particular year? We are probably the only country in the world. Maybe in Iraq and places like that is going on, but for a peaceful democratic country, Christian country of all things, legally Christian country. He's not laughing. I'm not laughing. You may call him at Christian Penisna. 70% of our women are going to be victims of sexual assault this year. Now, I put it to you that that unique situation needs to be dealt with. And so, if it's possible for you, you're the legal expert, if you can draft a law that comes and in this particular case, suppose one Mary come na toko sem, she's been raped, and medical evidence shows that something took place. That should be enough for us, and it's up to the perpetrator to prove otherwise. We have to change that, especially in this case, because if 3 million women are going to be victims this year, that's scary. We're not talking, and only 30,000 of them are going to report out of 3 million. And pandemic year, that's worse than COVID-19. COVID-19 did not affect this many people, and we shut down the country. So we need to do something to protect our women. So I'm suggesting to you, if you can make it work, if you can do so legally, Namel or some lawyer, you guys work it out, bring it to us, committee staff here. We will get the law to change, because you saw 100% of the members of parliament spoke on behalf of the women. So now we have to prove that we mean what we say, and we will change the law so that it will protect the women, not give license to the perpetrator, because these statistics to me shows that, and it's happening already. All man hamamas lo rape making about, they're even videotaping themselves, raping women and then posting it for everybody to see. Look at us. 10 of us very powerful Christian men just raped a woman. Video, yeah? You play government by making one emblem. You play police, you play Department of Justice, Parliamentary Committee. What are you going to do about that? We just raped a woman and we uploaded it online. That, you see, there's a no-care attitude now with all these perpetrators. They're happy to flaunt. So in place, kill also, so off also, me raping Mary, they're doing that now. And I put it to you, Secretary, that it's up to your, not just department, but the legal fraternity, all of you, to come to us with a deterrent in law, so that you man sabe you tachi meritasol. You are now going to feel the full brunt of the independent state of Papua New Guinea. I think that's the message that we need to be sending. And I think that those in the legal fraternity needs to see it that way. In this particular instance, it's not just about the victims of GBV. I think it's the law and order situation generally. And deteriorating, the ones that are really feeling the brunt, Mary. So at some point, we need to slide in some kind of stop mechanisms before this thing. I think it's already out of hand, but I'd like for you to sort of consider and consult all the legal brains you need to. And if we need to do it in Papua New Guinea, if we need to put a sunset clause on it or something, so there are safeguards built in, build in the safeguards. But the protection for our women who are subjected to these sorts of atrocities, that needs to be front and center and given priority. Secretary?
Thank you, Deputy Chairman. We did try that already in 1977 when we introduced the Intergroup Fighting Act, and we pushed a burden to the chiefs of tribes who were involved in tribal fights. And the Supreme Court struck it down, that you cannot reverse the burden of proof in criminal matters. So that has been the landmark case in Papua New Guinea since 1977 come now, and that's section 37(4)(a) of the Constitution talks about presumption of innocence. So if you're going to change this, then we need to go back and change the Constitution. That's just number one point. But they already, sir, under the Summary Offences Act, they already reversal of burden of proof in certain misdemeanors. So there's already case law as well. But in the indictable ones, which this particular issues fall under, the Supreme Court has said presumption of innocence is guaranteed in the Constitution. So if you want to reverse it, you have to amend the Constitution. So me, Larem Kambik Lan Blue. But just on another matter that I also want to ensure that you are also held accountable as leaders. You are the leaders. In 2022, you repealed the death penalty.
Correct.
For raping a young girl who is killed. You repealed the law on the death penalty for the perpetrator. You did that as Parliament.
Correct.
So, coming back to the issue, it's not done only by Christians in PNG, it's also done by Christians in Australia, in America, in the United States. GEWE does not come by religion. Even the most humble or most celebrated individual in the world also commits GEWE. It's across the spectrum, not because you're a Christian. And so it's a problem that is inherent. I was just reading in Australia 2 weeks ago, where it's become a major problem for Australia. GEWE is a major problem in Australia at the moment. How are they addressing it? It's a major problem in New Zealand. It's a major problem across the world. How do we address it? From where we stand as a law and justice sector, it cannot be just by law. It has to be across a broad spectrum of interventions. Maybe in terms of you connecting the roads in PNG, your Connect PNG program, your education program. So it's a whole lot of government approach we need to take. For us to just amend the law like we did in 2022, and we said, okay, we're going to increase the persons that you can approach to give you IPOs, there's still problems. And so, leaders, you know that already, and we all know it's all of us. And I'm just looking for a way. How do we address this issue? So for our law and justice sector, the Cabinet has just approved our new policy. So the law and justice sector policy 2025 to 2035, our focus is on crime prevention. Instead of investing in so much in terms of police, prosecution, all the stuff, can we refocus? Get back to crime prevention. What are those interventions that will stop these crimes from happening? Because that's the issue. Now in the department, we have also heard you, Chairman, we have also now established a specific branch for victims. So we're calling it the restorative justice. So the whole idea is that the government is now dealing with the perpetrator, spending money, investigate, police, whatever. The Department of Justice, can you go and deal with the victims? Laremo police work blog, but you go na finding victims here, na start lo finding way lo help him lo reconcile him, all families. So that's under our new corporate plan. We're setting up this branch, and we want to try and address that issue. you may lose small victims long time to mass. We need to attend to them. And so they're just for us as a department, but we're asking the sector, please, let's refocus. Let's refocus back to crime prevention. So I'm legally comment Blomilo this plan. I know that we got us data, but please, let's also be aware that around us throughout the region and in the world, it's a major, major global problem as well. Thank you.
All right, Secretary, we are pressed with time, so we have to bring our dialogue to an end. What I want to propose as Chair is that if you all can do a written submission on the questions that have been there, because we don't have time to go through all of them. What I want to impress on you all before we ask you to excuse yourself is the gender, our national strategy is national strategies that we as government should take ownership of and roll it out. So I want to, on behalf of the committee, impress on you too and your Deputy Secretary that when the new strategy is revised, we expect you to implement it, take ownership of it and implement it in your department. And, you know, we can also, if all the government department and agency and provincial government, if we take ownership of this strategy, we will be making a big difference. But in terms of the dialogue that we have, we'll leave it to you to, you know, we will follow up on it absolutely in terms of any changes on the Evidence Act or shifting the burden of proof, this presumption of innocence, section 37(4). If we have to amend it in the Constitution, we are ready to propose an amendment, so we will be guided by you. Perhaps we can do identify some particular cases in which the burden will prove, especially in indictable offense. If there are some summary offenses that the burden is shifted, we can consolidate that in law. So if we get this advice from you all, that this is this and that, of course, your principal sort of agency to get to Parliament is the Attorney General. But we are here to support you and him, so we can make the recommendation to get the amendment done. So, you know, again, I want you all to understand the dilemma facing, you know, victims of gender-based violence. They can't get witness. They can't secure conviction. And that's why it's contributing to spiraling out of control. So we can't give us excuse that this is the law. No, the law is not like 10 Commandments from Moses. We can change it, absolutely. And that's the role of Parliament. And also, we don't have to worry about what is happening in New Zealand and Australia. Our committee, we are, you know, concerned about what is happening in Papua New Guinea, and we can't just say everybody is doing it, so we be complacent. No, we have to, you know, take action, because the victims of gender-based violence, 50% are women and girls of our country, and that's a big chunk of our population. That means 50% of our population are not able to really fulfill their dreams and hopes and utilize their full potential because they are oppressed or subject to all this intimidation and violence that they cannot fully contribute to the development of our country. So it's not, as you understand, not just a human rights issue, it's a development issue, it's a multifaceted issue, as you say. It's also about their rights as citizens, just to live in their country, just to be free to be in their country, in this city too. It pains me that the women have to go to the market and they have to look beyond the shoulder and go to the bus stop and just doing basic things. It's a trauma. They can't go to the market without overthinking it or thinking about it. They can't go to the bus stop. They can't go to the shopping malls on their own. What sort of society is this we are creating? So it's about our country together. So our committee, you know, like you may complacent and give excuse and be comfortable. It's an emergency and we need to take emergency measures. So you may like send him some burden of proof or shift the onus or burden. You may shift him, Secretary. Usut by cross mu, no line by cross mu. You may yet. And as a deputy say, we can do it as a sunset clause. 10 years you may try him now. You know, walk okay, you may rouse him. Thank you, Secretary.
Chairman, just let me close. Me like to congratulations to you, one plan law, you pass him.
Yes.
Law Glassman.
Yeah.
We have the first case now. So we've just prosecuted the first case under that law that was proposed by this committee.
Yes.
So congratulations. Now thank you, Law Blipla.
Yes.
Thank you.
Deputy Chair is credit goes to him because he pushed it and he moved it as a private member. Yeah.
I bulldozed
Thank you.
it.
Yeah, bulldoze it. That's what we can do. Yes. Sorry,
Secretary, just before you go, I think maybe on the eve of the country's 50th anniversary, maybe the best present we can give to our own folk is to amend the law in relation to evidence, especially with prosecutions of sexual crimes involving females. Because the statistics are taking up. I think based on the thousands of complaints being lodged, there's only very minimal successful prosecution and eventual conviction. So obviously there's something wrong from the time the complaint is lodged up to the time the judge or magistrate convict the accused person. Maybe it's to do with the way crime is being processed in the courts. Because in most sexual related offenses, the victims, so as the witnesses, are more reluctant to come forward and give evidence because of stigma, because of repercussions, because at the end of the day, they go back to the community. So if we can, to the department and to us, the committee, we can push through Parliament an amendment to the evidence requirement in sexual offences cases where, you know, doesn't need to be on to the balance of the beyond reasonable doubt. Doesn't even need corroborating evidence. Maybe a medical report from a doctor reporting on confirming the act of the offense, confirming the offense, commission of the offense. That will be sufficient. Shift the burden onto the defendant and let him prove his innocence. I mean, in that way, you know, deterrence is a very important tool. Once we started having a lot of those people in behind bars, then it will send a message down to them, because now people are doing it with impunity. They haven't, like as what the chairman was saying, you know, they even posted online those, you know, rape and all these kind of things. So,
sexual violation.
I mean, it's not good as a country. Based on UNDP data, we are well below. So all of us, from members of Parliament down to everyone involved in the administration of justice, we're going to do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Member. Secretary, thank you. Deputy Secretary, thank you. Thank you for your time and thank you for respecting our committee and contributing to our dialogue this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, we what is our time? 12, but we have Secretary for Treasury here, and I don't want him to go back and come back after lunch, so I want to call on the Secretary to come, and we can have a dialogue, and then we can have a break for lunch.
He looks hungry. Secretary looks hungry.
Secretary, I thank you for making time available to come before our committee. I know you have a very heavy load on your schedule every day. All the departments and provincial government and ministers, they put pressure on you, but so we thank you for making time available, respecting our committee. I think the background, and you probably have been here a while listening to other, sessions of this hearing, and so you understand a bit of context too. But just by way of reminder, Parliament has spoken loudly, and so all the agencies of government, we must respond. So some of the questions that we have raised, I believe you have them already. And basically, in terms of your department is to understand the appropriation, perhaps in terms of planning, could you confirm to the committee and everyone listening in terms of do Treasury in terms of framing the budget, factor gender, issues into budget planning, and in particular in terms of responding to gender-based violence, considering that it's a big pandemic in our country and the statistics are high, and we have a national strategy. So if you could speak in that respect. Secondly, perhaps account for the appropriation that has been made perhaps from 2022 up to now. And what is the plan for the future? Is that level of funding going to continue or might increase? Perhaps you could give us an oversight. And then thirdly, we have a problem, as if you had been listening in, been here in the morning with the Department for Community Development. You all are issuing the warrant, goes down to finance, but taking a long time for finance to remit to the department. And when it's in the department, it's in goes there like in lump.
The main basket.
Yeah, in the main basket. And then from the main basket in the department, they give it by drips and drabs to the secretariat. So perhaps secretary, maybe with you and planning secretary and secretary finance, we could come up with a better mechanism, like basically the system that we have put in place in terms of both structural and the finance system does not show that we recognize the gravity of the problem at the end, and that we have an emergency, and that we go to work in an emergency way. We are basically taking it as another day in paradise or something. But the reality facing our country and facing women and girls, especially, some men too are subject to, perhaps gender-based violence. This one voice that came in Parliament, but 90% or 95% women and girls who are victims of gender-based violence, they suffer pain and trauma and stress, and some of them are subject to severe violation, barbaric violation. And our response does not, consummate or shows that we are really recognize the gravity of the problem. So that's why, Secretary, we are calling you here. So we will, we've asked your colleague at the Finance to come. So we're trying to sort this out. Either way, you can, I know you just issue warrant, but you and your colleague in the Finance, we can direct the funds to go straight to the maybe trust account of the Secretariat, so they can start working and support the front line. There are a lot of CSO in the tour that we did in the beginning of the year. Like, for example, we went up to Agen, and we had frontline officers both in government and in the CSO come from the number of provinces, Western Islands, Southern Islands, Seala, Enga, Juaka, Simbu. They're very passionate, very committed. Some are selfless. They do work out of passion or commitment and recognizing the problem at the end. But all know what support your secretary. So with the background oversight, you could give us some idea about how you all are tackling it or seeing it from your department. Thank you.
Thank you. Good day. Thank you, Chairman and the members. And I'm on the outset, I'm very grateful to be here. I think this is a very, very, very important topical issue. So privileged to be here. And as I have, as you mentioned, Chairman, earlier, I have come early just to listen to understand the context of which this is hearing. This is one of my first times to appear, so I tried my best to come as much as possible, prevalently said. But I think it's very important where our department supports the community's work and commitment to promoting gender equality and women empowerment.
And as a Secretary for the Department of Treasury, I think we try to ensure that gender equity and social inclusion mainstream in my department via our corporate services, and to ensure that my department implements this family-friendly environment practices in supporting our families across our nation. One thing I'd like to highlight here in terms of the gender equality is not only a social justice issue, but we recognize this as a critical driver of sustainable, inclusive economic development and growth for our nation. And therein, investing in our women's economic participation can lead to, we all know that, higher national productivity, increase households' income, and improve social outcomes. So in this context, and Chairman, if I could go back in relation to the questions that the committee has posed in terms of the appropriations and what it was given in the past 2 years, I think in 2022 there was a total appropriation of close to about 9.2 million, of which I think the main ones, I think the Gender-Based Violence Secretariat appropriation received about 7.9 mil. And we also had, I think there was a policy also under this program as a development policy of women, and that was close to about 886,000. Those were the main ones. In 2023, the Gender-Based Violence Secretariat appropriation was close to about 9.7 million. And the policy on development of women, that was again maintained at the 2022 appropriation of about 856,000. So, and that's in total in 2023 stands to about 11.7 million in terms of the appropriation. And as you rightly stated, Chairman and members, is the Department of Treasury is responsible for formulation and implementation of budget. In the process of budget preparation, as you know, all agencies are required to submit the budget bids. And all of this has come true, and in the process, department goes through its process. And there's also at the bureaucratic level, at the department level, we have a central agency departmental heads at the deputy level, and this is called the Budget Strategic Committee. So what it does is it goes through all the budget submission that are come through, and they go through, and to work within in terms of the overall budget framework. Now, in that process, we get the submission come through, and that's what Treasury entails of, with competing priorities, try to come up with the ISET budget. Now, as you also rightly stated, that the Secretariat sits under the Department of Community Development, and it sits there, and we will notice that during the budget passage, and when we table at the budget, there are a number of documents that usually are presented before the Parliament, and these are budget volume documents. It goes from volume 1 to volume 3, in which volume 2 contains it has about 4 parts: part A, part B, part C, and part C. What it does is it tries to break those up in terms of the itemized program down to the agency, and then agency right down to activity levels. And so once the budget is approved, passed by the Parliament on the November, it becomes now, and all the government agencies are now ready to implement. And for that, and during that period from the passage of the budget, and it should not only be that time that agencies should be organized themselves, but it is from that time to what we call an opening of account in an annual year, that there are 3 key sort of documentation need to be provided. and these are, agency cash flow, and their procurement plans. And there is another one, just keep in my mind, but there's 3 of them, the annual plan. So in that regard, these are submitted, and if which agency come early, we try to collect this coming through in January. Most of them come in February and late March. So when this information comes through, again, you will know that once this volume of document is presented, we have the IFMS, a system generated as well. This is where the IFMS, it's also in that system, is also coded down to all the item codes as well, down to activity codes. So whenever agencies on a monthly ceiling, we tend to put a monthly warrant, a ceiling in which we try to prorata all implementation of the budget. Now, if the agency have already submitted all your information through, then we are able to, the Treasury can be able to release those according to those particular areas that they have requested for. So in that regard, when this comes through, then the warrant is released straight to the agencies. Now, except for some of the provincial agencies, it goes to the Department of Finance, and then it is remitted as a grant, remittance grant. But
Secretary, can I just get that clarity? Your department is able to issue funds direct to some agencies. Doesn't have to go through finance. I just want to confirm that.
yes, in form of warrants.
In form of warrants.
Right.
Or the warrants here.
Yes.
Can you explain for the committee's benefit the difference
the
between a
public
warrant
benefit,
and a cash fund certificate, so at least the chairman can understand the difference between the two?
Okay, thank you, Deputy Chair. The warrant, once an appropriation is passed, it's held against, the warrant is held against each appropriation. So in the system IFMS, you will see all the vote codes. So if say for example, the Secretariat, it has a specific vote code next to it, and then where it sits is the agency head. So say that's the Department of Community and Development. Now we know that the Section 32 is the departmental head, unless he delegates that down. Otherwise, it remains with him. So when we reissue the warrants, it's through the system. So it's system now. So what happens is now you can, while you will have all those vote codes in the systems, you cannot turn them unless the warrant is issued. So then in the system allows you now to activate that. And then we come to Deputy Chair's mention of that. Once it's there, a commitment is done and a cash certificate is issued. That is when a check is able to be printed. So you can now be able to, and that's internal for the agency, they can run through their internal process.
Who issues the CFC?
That's on the agencies that will release the warrants to. So they run their internal process. Now if it's a procurement process and their internal process is in place, they raise that against that in order to purchase for the goods and services delivered. So that's the process. Once Treasury releases that to them, they take care of it. Now Treasury cannot unilaterally issue.
Secretary, just a minute there. Once there's funds in the accounts of respective agencies, and for the issuance of the CFC, is there any possibility of, like the Section 32 officer from the respective department, like in this case here, the Secretary from the Department of Community Development, is there any possibility or is there any prospect of money being diverted instead of the
Main account.
to the main account, yeah?
Go straight
Oh,
to the
The secretarial account.
Yeah.
directly.
What I'm saying is if there is room for
Is it possible?
Yeah, is it possible for the Secretary of the Department, the Section 32 officers to, like if they're issuing the CFC, for the expenditure of that money, for whatever activities or programs they're trying to run in the department, like in this case, the GBD Secretariat. I'll put it this way. Is there room for, or is there a possibility of some misuse, misapplication? That's what I mean.
Thank you. When we establish a budget, all the expenditure other than personal emoluments is all controlled by warrants. So as a departmental head, when you submit your cash flow, you break it down to items that are reflected in the budget, which the system will release the warrant according to those vote codes. When you identify that, we will release it according to those activities. In line with those activities, then those warrants can be raised, cash commitments can be done, and
Secretary.
there's that.
I think the committee wanted to establish, because when we spoke to the Secretary for Community Development, who is the Section 32 in this
Yes.
particular instance. Now they also have a trust account for the for the GBV Secretariat. Now at the moment, what they're doing is when the money goes to their account, the Secretary then writes a check for 500,000, which is his limit, and then tries to deposit into the trust account. So our concern is this: are you able to direct a warrant so that the cash is deposited directly into the trust account, as opposed to the
Main account.
as opposed to the main account for community development? That's really what we're trying to understand. Are you able to do that? Are you able to send, because at the moment they've missed out on being able to expend their funds for last year, because the Secretary has written a whole bunch of checks for $500,000 each that they are unable to deposit into the trust account because they're waiting for a clearance letter from the Secretary for Finance. So are you able to help us resolve that issue?
According to his evidence.
Yeah.
Well, according to his evidence.
It's according to his statement.
Yeah. No. Thank you, Deputy Chair. I think that's in terms of really management of the accounts, and those I can rely on my Secretary for Finance to assist me in that regard. But as you know, it goes into an operating account and a trust account. I think those two instruments tends to be operate differently, whereas a trust account tends to have a lifetime to it, time frame to it, and once you establish that, it's governed by its trust deeds. The other one we could look at is, having an operating account for itself. But then another question comes to itself is, do we want to hold the Secretariat as Secretariat in perpetuality, or how do we want to see the structure sits as? And so that's, if it becomes a sort of a separate entity, so that's, we are governed by those flows of funds across that. But I take note of it. But it's an area where the finance, we can sit down and see us back in that. As far as I'm aware of, in relation to funds going into the trust account, we try to make provisions for those from the start in terms of the budget time. So these are identified as these are funds going directly into the trust accounts. And for that case, it goes directly to Department of Finance in terms of warranting out to Department of Finance. Then it does a remittance into those trust accounts.
Secretary, thank you. I want to go back to my question in terms of the funding plan for perhaps the next maybe 2 years or 3 years. And I'm asking this question, in two aspects. One, given the gravity of the problems we have at the end, that the instance of GBV has come to a stage where it's epidemic or pandemic, and we need to respond as an emergency one. So the prospect for funds allocation or appropriation increase, what's the dialogue there? So that's the first sort of a line I'm asking you this question. Secondly, in terms of predictability, if the Secretariat and all the stakeholders, they have predictability, then they can plan for the next 3 or 4 years. They know that these funds are guaranteed, so they tailor their plan accordingly, that we are going to get this same amount of funds this year, or it's going to increase, or something like that. So they can plan accordingly, so they don't have to be in suspense. So that's essentially why I'm asking you that line of questioning. What's the projection there? The funding level 9.7 or whatever will be almost the same, or it will increase, or it depends on submission, or what is your department in terms of projection? Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. I think that's a very important question. And as you know, all of these funds are allocated and are funded towards activities that are going to be undertaken. And through this process and through the agency responsible that outlines in this particular, if it's an agency all sector approach is taken, then we can be able to see how that funding will go through. In that space, in terms of what is the Secretariat is, would it be stayed as a Secretariat and stay under that agency because of the gravity of it?
Secretary, can I rephrase? The issue we found is that, for instance, the original budget was about 7.9 million or something, and I believe that occurred in the last Parliament, and it's just been maintained consistently up until now. They've never had a funding increase, and coupled with the difficulties of accessing the funds, which I've previously outlined to you. Now, they put in a budget submission for 20 million or so because they wanted to support these activities right down to the provincial levels. And despite that submission being made, they still received the same funding allocation. And you mentioned earlier that you have competing priorities. The issue would be, how do you determine the priority of not so much funding the Secretariat, but funding, we see it as funding for the problem. We don't see it as funding for the Secretariat. Right. There is a pandemic going on. 3.5 million women annually in this country are subjected to violent or sexual abuse. Those are the stats. So our interest as a committee is in making sure that those statistics improve. And for that reason, the Secretariat was tasked with driving that agenda. So this is not funding for the Secretariat, this is funding for the sector. This particular, you can call it a subsector, call it whatever you like. But this sector which is dealing with issues for women, gender-based violence, gender equity, all of that. So in all of your competing priorities, do you have a framework that decides which priority is more important than, say, another priority? Like, okay, Connect PNG picks up 1.8 billion kina a year. There is a method that determines that it should get 1.8 billion kina annually. Education receives probably what, 2.8 billion? There's a method that determines that. GBV is something that we are just now trying to deal with, and we've already determined that it is a very serious issue. While the mechanisms are being worked out, there's a Secretariat put in place of bringing all of these activities together. Now, this Secretariat has come up, the 7.9 million you currently have in front of you was a number that this committee agreed with the current treasurer. He sat in the chair you were sitting in a few years ago, and we had a discussion and we agreed to that amount of money. And that amount has not changed. Now that they have determined what their real needs are, they were asking for about 20 million. And what we want to hear from you, Secretary, is that, is it possible for them to, how do they get in front of these competing priorities to get their 20 million? That's essentially what we're asking you. How do they get their 20 million? In terms of all of these competing priorities, 3.5 million women in our country are going to be impacted this year. How does this secretariat pick up the 20 million so that we can help make an impact? How do they do that? Who determines the priority? Is it yourself? Is it you and a group of colleagues? Is it your minister? Is it the Prime Minister? Who determines what gets priority?
There's a committee.
I'm asking you, Secretary.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. That's a very important question and a very valid one as well. I think in terms of the allocation that is given, and when the bids are submitted, agencies are asked to present that as well. And so when that is done, that is then elevated up. We may have a number that we make allocation for it, recommended goes up, but through the process up, priorities comes in. Now, as you know, some of these are determined beyond us, and which is the government, rightly so, they make their provisions. But just to come back to it, the allocation for this year is in fact 12.6 million in total. The number that you have picked up was, in terms of the gender-based violence secretariat itself, is 9.7 million. The number you have quoted, that was early numbers of 2022. But I think there is that push for it, and support for it going forward, and elevating in this level, certainly going forward, this will always remain. It still remains as part of the priorities.
Thank you, Secretary. Rather than us sort of wasting your time and you wasting ours, are you able to give us an undertaking at this committee hearing that perhaps at the next budget session, you or someone else can give either the Secretariat or the department or whoever the priority we need in order to advance some of the solutions that we are seeking? I mean, you had Parliament last week, right? Every single member of Parliament essentially committed to this. So as far as I'm concerned, that's a priority. And that should move it up ahead other priorities, because it took 2 days of our time. And I'm putting to you that you should. It's never been done before in our history. So I'm putting to you that will you give an undertaking to us now as a committee that you will take a look at it and you will make sure that it gets the priority it deserves?
Secretary, sorry. It's sort of.
Thank you, Deputy Chairman, most certainly, and I will maintain that. And in my budget locker for 2026, I will make mention of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe along that question, sorry, member, before I alluded to you, along that question, Secretary, does your department have a gender division that gets you all to be synthesized to gender issues and ensure that we have budget planning taking into account, gender consideration, or is it only a general sort of a framework that you have? Perhaps it also comes to your department in terms of having that specific focus, not just on GEWE, but also in terms of gender planning. That's because everything is defined up there in your department. Of course, you get submission from all the agency, but it comes to your department to crunch it together. So it comes to whether your department has made a commitment, has the recognition, and put gender into your planning at the highest level. Consistent with what my deputy has said. And yes.
Thank you, Chair. It is a cross-cutting issue. It's across the agencies. And if I had ample time in the questions that I would have come with all these informations, but across each sector, where all these funds are going towards. and then we can be able to, give you a good look at the programs that have been undertaken in terms of in the police force, a number of women that is required. I think that remains also across the cross-cutting. So if I'm able to collate that information in my next presentation, I will bring that up. But specifically in terms of the areas of where this particular, in terms of the Secretariat to be supported, that's obvious. We'll take note of that.
Yes, Secretary, please do that. You can even submit the report subsequently, but I'll allude to a member for Northeast, committee member, Northwest.
Thank you, Chairman. Secretary, good day, bro. You mentioned two amounts. I think it was 12 point something million and 7.9. Is that two separate amounts for the budgetary allocation for 2025, or 12 million is allocated to? Is it to the department or to the GBV Secretariat for 25?
Thank you. The total allocation under the gender equality initiative, that includes both the Secretariat and then the policy development of women, and then there's a program called Gender Equality Based Violence in PNG, and this is the component that we get from our donors that supports us. So in total, all total is 12.6 billion. 12.6 million, and the Secretariat itself, its own line, is 9.7.
So these are two.
They come in one program, but you're correct.
Right.
Of the 12.6 million, the Secretariat takes 9.7.
Thanks. But it goes to the main account.
It goes to the appropriation. Yes, correct.
So, Secretary, just follow up from that, and in terms of interagency or multi-agency submission, is it is it working in terms of dividing the resources or into different agencies? Is that a good method of, appropriating funds and delivering outcomes? Perhaps maybe I could ask it in a different way, but maybe I could ask it this way. Would it be better if these multi-agencies that are dealing with gender-based violence and gender equality have a submission to the department to consider separately from everybody else, so that the allocation is specific? So, for example, the health sector, they give a funding for the family support center that they've set up, trying to set up like a one-stop shop. Doctors and maybe policemen or so on, they are all together, so they respond in time. So they're setting up this family support center. And then we have in the police force, we have the family sexual violence unit. And then of course we have the Secretariat. And then also we just have a recurrent budget, including program budget. And then we have all the frontline, CSO and faith-based organization. They're doing wonderful work at the front. So is it possible for us to have this agency come together and submit one budget, so you all look at it in the context of the emergency that we have, rather than police department coming in and they have a 1.6 billion budget, and it's all trickled down to transport and CID and uniforms and so on, and then the family sexual violence is diluted, and this is forgotten, and this is the biggest problem that the police and the agencies are saying. If the police come here, I think Deputy Police Commissioner will be here. He might give us a bit, but we are not getting funding, Chairman and Deputy Chairman. Our family sexual violence unit are not getting funding. That will be probably his biggest excuse. But did he put priority on it, or he put priority on some other things? So I'm just thinking, like in terms of budgeting, maybe these inter-agencies, they come together, make a submission, and it goes to maybe the secretariat, so then the secretariat then can appropriate directly instead of going through there. I'm just thinking like, we have to think out of the box. We have an emergency, and we are not acting and structuring things in responding to emergency. As I said, we are taking things as normal, casually. Women and girls cannot wait, and GBB is not having an holiday. Every day it happens. The PPC up in Hagen, when we had the listening to update, is in his own words. I've got it on video. He says, Emil Semwaraya, TPI on, how will I deal with it? I got only 2 FSVSU officers. Governor and Chairman, how will I deal with it? I'm overwhelmed. So when the police come, we will probably ask them to, maybe they need to synthesize all the officers. We don't just need FSVSU officers to be, dedicated to GVV, but every officer. That's probably his problem, and is, putting a lot of burden on the PPCs and PSCs. So I'm just thinking at this time, if we could think about it this way, and of course we'll have a discussion with all the interagency organizations, but I think maybe it will help. There's a funding separate, dedicated to addressing GVP and achieving gender equality that is dedicated, and we park it there. And that agency, the secretariat, can distribute it so that FSVSU, if they're going to be their own unit in the police force and the family support center in the health sector, they get their money that is enable them to respond appropriately. Otherwise, it will be diluted. Yeah, I'm just making this suggestion to you. I have a final comment too. I know it's almost 1 o'clock, so we have to make provision for lunch. But my final question, or perhaps just not a suggestion, but a recommendation, Secretary. The national strategy to respond to gender-based violence and end gender-based violence is a national government strategy and property. So what I want to recommend to you is that if your department can also adopt the strategy that is owned by the government and roll it out, get the officers in your department to adopt zero tolerance to gender-based violence at their home and in workplace and even in public place, because they are our officers. They go to their house, they commit violence and so on, and they come here pretending to be, decent, upright officers of the state, representing the state, both in your department and in the country, and some go overseas too to represent the state. But their behavior doesn't consummate so we are trying to get to a situation where a three-strike policy. If you committed gender-based violence at home or at workplace or in public place, we give you a warning. And then second warning. And third warning, you by go now. It becomes a terms and condition of employment. We are actually going to recommend a specific law on that, the three-strike policy. So can, but I want to recommend that your department adopts the policy too. And imagine if all the government department and state agency roll out the policy on the basis that, we walk the talk. It's a government policy, and if we don't practice it, how do we expect our people in the villages and everywhere else to practice it? So this is what I can see contributing to the failure, that prevalence going up, and we have done a lot of work, but it's not making a difference. It's absolutely not making a difference. Secretary, thank you. Thank you for your time. And if you want to respond, you can respond, but otherwise I'll thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chairman, Deputy Chairman, and the members. Thank you so much. Just in terms of the recommendation put forward, the Treasury does have a gender-based violence policy, and I would be happy to make also that policy available to you in relation to the written response. Just in terms of Treasury, we have close to about 7 of our women in our senior management, and 6 are men. And in terms of the deputy level, we do have 2 of most dedicated and professional ladies who are also deputy secretary. Well, very much, I totally agree to that, and I am so happy to be here today and take away this recommendation initiative to go forward.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Secretary, on that part of achieving equality. We will start maybe in the next inquiry, start bringing accountability. All the departments, provincial government, state agency, what steps they are taking to promote gender equality. So as I said, it's in line with the premise that we must walk the talk. We must be the gold standard, and then we'll expect our people to follow. Thank you, Secretary, for your time. All right, with that, I want to thank our committee members, Deputy Chair, everyone, all our stakeholders, different organizations of the state and civil society organizations. You all are coming. I thank you for our time this morning and your patience and tolerance and listening in and participating in the inquiry, directly, indirectly, all are meaningful to the session that we have this morning. So with that, we close for lunch, maybe 1 hour, or half an hour. 1 hour. 1 hour. So let's resume at 2 o'clock. There's food out there, and everybody's welcome to share it with all of us here. Thank you.
I'll send you a text.